Hi! So a few months ago, I reread Twilight, this one, that sparked up an idea for a video where I would rank all of Bella's clothes that she wears in the first Twilight book. This one. As I was making that video, it just didn't feel interesting. I was wondering, why is that? So let's just take a look through Bella's clothes and see what it was that made me feel meh. So first we have jeans and a t-shirt. I put a note here, it was for indoors. Then we have a brown turtleneck and I quote, inescapable jeans. And then we have the worst one, which is tan sweater with a white shirt with a collar underneath that hung right over jeans. The reason why I say this is the worst one is because she matched that with Edward unconsciously. And of course, the meme-worthy khaki skirt with a deep blue V-neck blouse. Wow. By the descriptions of all these clothing items, you can probably guess what was so uninteresting about that video. The clothes themselves. How would I rank these clothes in a video? I mean, besides the khaki skirt, which would obviously be God tier, all of the other ones would have to go to the garbage tier because it's all garbage. It's all very monotone and it's all very bland. That got me thinking, why was that? Well, Bella as a character is also a very bland figure, but that also got me thinking, why is Bella like that? As we all know, Twilight was huge when it came out, and it just created an avalanche of similar-minded stories. If you look at a lot of these stories, you will notice that a lot of the main characters do resemble Bella. And that sparked an idea for the video that I'm currently making. I want to see what was so influential about Bella. I want to see how she was able to frame so many characters afterwards. She is a crucial part of Twilight, but she exists also outside of Twilight. She exists in all of the other stories, and I just wanted to know why is that and what does it mean for us? Simple as that. So let's jump back into the clothes that Bella wears. Couple of terms can be used to describe her clothes. So the first ones that come to mind are basic, earthy, neutral tones, layers, and modest. And in order to understand all of these, we have to look at Bella as a character. So what was her main goal in the beginning in the first Twilight book? This one. Her goal was not to stand out. And if we take that goal into the clothes that she wears, we can see it does make sense. If we look at basics, well, Bella doesn't really care that much about fashion. The only fashion that she cares about is of the people that she is attracted to, like Edward. But outside of that, she doesn't really care what she wears. Next up, with earthy and neutral tones, well, it does fit the vibes of Forks. Earthy neutral tones, I don't know, I guess she tried to camouflage. And moving on with layers, again, it's the weather. It's always raining there, it's always chilly and cold. Of course you're going to wear layers. But the modest part is the most interesting one for me, because there is two explanations to it. An in-lore explanation and the one that transcends it. So the in-lore explanation about the modest clothing that Bella wears can be basically traced down to her main goal as a character, not to stand out. But there is also an out-of-the-lore explanation about why Bella wears modest clothes. One of the videos that I have watched prior to this one that did spark interest in clothing, because I would not notice clothes that much in my reread of Twilight if I haven't watched that video beforehand. So I definitely do wish for you to check it out. It is a video about the infamous khaki skirt. It is actually during that time that I did find out that Stephenie Meyer, the author of Twilight, is a Mormon. Now, Mormonism is a term defining the religious beliefs and practices of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons. I really didn't know anything about it up until the Twilight Renaissance, so I guess thank you, Twilight Renaissance, for making me more educated. The reason why I've learned about it only then is because people started to connect Mormonism to the way Stephenie Meyer crafted Twilight. So the video that I talked about before also told us about how this khaki skirt influenced the way sexuality and attraction are viewed in Twilight. The influence of Mormonism in general is not just seen in the clothes that Bella wears, but also in the character of Bella. Bella in Twilight constantly cleans, she cooks, she is a very diligent student, she does homework and whatnot, and she's always seen doing these household chores. There's nothing obviously wrong with that. I mean, she's just acting responsibly, but there is always a very, very big theme of motherhood in Twilight, and I don't mean just whatever the heck happens later on in the story. Even in this first book, the way she's described is as a very motherly figure, especially when she's compared to her actual mother. Renee. Renee is seen as more of a childish persona. She's someone who needs constant supervision. That's why Bella was kind of scared of leaving Renee in the beginning when Renee goes with her baseball or basket. No, I think it's baseball boyfriend. I almost said girlfriend. Oh, that would be fun. Oh my god. Bella is not scared of like leaving her mom because like, oh, I don't want to be separated from her. I mean, there is part of that, but also she doesn't want to leave her mother because she's afraid that she won't be able to take care of herself. So there's always this very big theme about motherhood and this very responsible behavior. And there's obviously other ways Mormonism is portrayed in this story, such as I said, the way lust and attraction is portrayed. But I would say that's more important for later books. I just want to focus on the first Twilight book. This one. So as we can see from all of these examples that I have given, Bella is quite a simple character. Whether you look at the in-lore explanation of Bella's modesty or this more like theory explanation, all of these boil down to Bella being a very reserved, passive character that still somehow manages to attract all the paranormal creatures around her that want to either kill her or love her, sometimes both. We see you, Edward. So where does that lead us? And now, Mary Sue. There is a lot of discussions on whether Bella is a Mary Sue or not, because people cannot make up their minds over what the definition of Mary Sue is. If you think of Mary Sue as a character that is portrayed in this very perfect, flawless way, then Bella wouldn't exactly fit into that description, because throughout the whole story, Bella is trying to be portrayed as this very flawed creature. She stumbles a lot. But if you do think of Mary Sue as a passive character that still manages to have the whole plot revolve around her, then Bella is basically Mary Sue. The plot revolves around her without her doing anything in particular, yet everything is about her and everybody wants her. Now, this term Mary Sue can really help us decode what made Bella so special. And I don't mean inside of the lore, we still won't get it. She was just a special girly. But this term Mary Sue can help us in understanding why was Bella such an influential character, even to this day. So Mary Sue characters were usually used as a self-insert, and not just of the author, but for the readers themselves. Think of all the yins from the fan fictions. YN literally means your name. And if you check the description of almost any YN character in these fan fictions, they all sound pretty much the same. Oh, there's this shy girly that just came to a new school and she just doesn't want to be seen by anybody in the school, but like also she's super clumsy. All of a sudden there's this hockey player that's the main bad boy of the high school and he's like, yo, I want you. And then all of a sudden another guy is like, no, I want you. And it turns out that he's a rival to the first bad guy. That's literally Bella, except the whole hockey stuff. Can you think about it like hockey in the Twilight lore? That would actually make sense. Jacob is already a sporty guy and Edward, I guess, likes cold or is not bothered by it. I would definitely read that fanfic. Yeah, but at last we got a poorly written BDSM Twilight fanfiction. All of this considered, Mary Sue, YN are very bland characters, but there is a reason why they were portrayed as such bland characters. Basically, they were meant to be blank canvas for the reader to paint themselves onto. In teen romance novels especially, it feels like a very logical thing to do. Teenagehood, it's a very weird period to be alive, honestly. So imagine if there is a story about an ordinary girl, someone who you can relate to, and on top of that, she's followed around by some super hot paranormal creatures that all want her attention. Who wouldn't want to read that? These books were meant for self-insertion. Because of that, the point was never to make an original character, but it was to make a relatable one. One of the reasons why Twilight was able to have such a success is because they made a very simple character with simple clothing. They managed to appeal to a wide audience. That and the sparkly vampires, I guess. To come back to clothes, everyone has basics in their closet, and now even with them, you can feel as special as Bella. She was a very flexible character, meaning that she didn't have to just fit the narrative of Twilight. She could fit any story. Because of that, we did see a lot of Bella lookalikes appear in our beloved stories. And that's how Bella became a mold for any future female protagonists. Let's see who they are, shall we? Once Twilight became super massive black hole. There was a lot of stories that got created and were very, very similar to Twilight. Publishers realized, oh, there is a market for all the werewolves and vampires and all the other paranormal creatures. Count me in. Hence, we got like bunch of other vampire stories. Think of Vampire Diaries, True Blood, and then moving on to angels like Fallen, and then to the more recent ones, we started off with Fae. And it wasn't just plot-wise that Twilight became a blueprint, it was Bella as a character that became a blueprint. Think of Elena from Vampire Diaries. Those two are very different character-wise, but for example, both of them are brunettes. Even though Elena was written as a blonde in the books, and there was like also this whole fashion trend that emerged from Elena and Bella's clothes because they also were very similar. Or Fallen, which is literally Twilight, but with angels. And I'm pretty sure that the main character in Fallen is just Bella if Twilight was with angels. All of the characters that emerged after the Twilight craze in other stories shared some common characteristics with Bella. It wasn't just their physical features, it was also just this whole idea of I am a special girl and I attract all the paranormal people, creatures to me. Yes. And similar to other stories with paranormal creatures, it's not that Twilight created vampires. Twilight created a specific image of vampires, similar how Sarah J. Maas didn't start Fae. Fae existed for a very long time. She just put her twist on it. In both the authors' cases, it was a success. Nothing bad about that. We're just here to enjoy our time, right? We're just here to have fun, right? Apparently not everybody thinks so. If there is one thing that's more popular than Twilight, it's hating on Twilight. I'm the first person that's gonna like criticize Twilight for all the stuff that it has put out in the world. However, in this specific part, I'm not going to talk about the criticism of the story. This is more about people liking to hate on Twilight, not as a story, but on people enjoying Twilight. Let's go back a couple of years ago when the whole Twilight craze started. Starting fandoms, in general being very passionate about things, are usually all the terms that you would associate with teen girls in our modern society. And honestly, like, if you just want to look where's going to be the most hate, it's always going to be on teen girls. Similar to boy bands, people liked to hate on Twilight. But again, they didn't like to hate on Twilight. They liked to hate on people who loved it. Same as they didn't like, in particular, hate One Direction or BTS. No, they hated people who liked them. When Twilight came out, there was not a lot of stories targeted to this specific group of teen girls. So that was definitely a very major factor in why Twilight became so big as it was. But of course, the more love something is shown, the more hate it is going to attract. And in cases of young adult stories, people in particular like to hate on them because of their target audience. And since Twilight is a paranormal romance, it does belong into the whole romance genre. That genre in and of itself also is filled with hate, and everybody's always gonna say, oh, if you read romance, you're not an actual reader. And that kind of stems from the fact that love in general is still considered a weakness in our society. And if you take that and the fact that emotional vulnerability is usually tied to women, well, obviously, if you have on the screen a girl that is, trying to find a boyfriend or, is in love, oh, that's such a the story, because it's all called girly, and in our society girly equals bad. But then people took a different approach. So instead of just straight on hating, they started to criticize Twilight by saying how it's very problematic to young girls. Is Twilight problematic? Absolutely. It's toxic as hell. Should people frame the idea of love on it? Absolutely not. But the problem with these critics, they completely invalidated the fact that Twilight was a fictional story and that teen girls enjoyed it because it was a fictional story, because they thought that it couldn't, separate reality from fiction, and then they're gonna apply everything to their real life. And suddenly you need to have like an extremely specific reason why you would like something. I remember when I was growing up, I wasn't really part of the Twilight craze when both the books and the movies came out. I was just like casually watching it. But I do remember if someone would ask me like, oh, do you watch Twilight? And I was like, yeah, but like, as a joke, because it's so dumb. If you would say, yeah, I genuinely enjoy this, people would give you looks like, how dare you like Twilight? How dare you show passion for something? Disgusting. People should be able to like whatever they want, because there should be a difference between hating and criticizing when somebody is reading and hating on the readers themselves. But unfortunately, that doesn't apply to teen girls. Everyone is always going to criticize more stories that are put up front, especially for teen girls. If the story revolves about like, you know, a young girl falling in love, it is immediately deemed as like less worthy than some other story, no matter how problematic that one is. And I guess the moral of the story, the moral of this video is, if you dislike something, then by all means dislike it, but dislike the story, not the reader. Twilight is problematic in many ways, and there is far more toxic takeaways from it than letting people just enjoy the story as it is. And of course, the worst that Twilight has brought is imprinting. That's disgusting. But yeah, I think I've talked more now about the whole hate on teen girls than the character of Bella. Thank you for watching. Now that I have wasted your time, you may go back to your real lives. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.